Hello, my dudes. It is Wednesday, and that means it's time for another roll call. Today, we are actually going to be making an orc. Now, I know what you're thinking, but didn't you already make an orc, and aren't you limiting yourself to going through each race? And the answer is, you would be right, except for the fact that, long in the before time, you could make what was called an Aasimar. And Aasimars are essentially mortals that have some sort of divine energy or blood in them. But it used to be that generally whenever they were depicted, they were basically just angelic-looking humans. Which, is fine. But it's one of those things where it's like, okay, so like angels are only interested in humans? That seems a little odd. But someone in their infinite wisdom, when the 2024 Player's Handbook came out, said, hey, it makes no sense that Aasimar are basically only human-like, and same thing with Tieflings. So why don't we go ahead and just make it to where you can roll an Aasimar, you can roll a Tiefling, but they can also be that thing of any race. So that's what we're doing. We're making an Orc Aasimar, and her name, again, as determined randomly by Xanathar's Guide to Everything, is Ootah, and I decided to give her the last name of Farcaller, and you will see why. And not only is she an Aasimar, she is also going to be an Aasimar sorcerer. And specifically, she is an aberrant mind sorcerer. If I could spell aberrant correctly the first time around. So that's what we're making today. I did debate a little bit on which subclass to go because none of them are new subclasses, so none of them take priority in that way. And they all kind of like, if they had the Divine Soul Sorcerer in this book, I totally would have gone with that. But they don't. They had the Aberrant Mind, they had the Clockwork Soul, they had the Dragon's Bloodline Sorcerer, and they had Wild Magic. And so I decided to do it randomly, just like I do most things when I can't decide. So it came up as Aberrant Mind. So I'm going to kind of, for her background, I'm imagining that, well, for her actual background, it's going to be Merchant. So let's go ahead and we'll put that in real quick. But as for her actual backstory, I imagine that, she's an Aasimar. And of course she's a merchant. But I imagine she came across maybe some sort of, cursed item or some object of the far realm, or maybe like they sometimes in the book they recommend like, okay, maybe it was a mind flayer tadpole that just never hatched essentially. So they came across something like that, and it basically sort of like corrupted her Aasimar powers. Now the interesting thing about this is that the Aasimar, there's two sets of Aasimar. Because originally, when you made an Aasimar, you got a choice of three different kind of subspecies of Aasimar. And one was essentially like the Protector and the Healer, one was essentially the Avenging Angel, and one was essentially a Fallen Angel that focused on necrotic damage. They kind of changed that a bit, and we'll get to that in a second. But I kind of imagine that if we were going by the old rules, she would be the kind of corrupted fallen angel type Aasimar, which you can still do, but you'll see how it is. It's like basically anytime you activate that particular power, you can choose any of them. So if you really wanted to just focus on the whole, fallen angel type thing, you would just go with the necrotic one every time. As always, we're going to make our character a level 3 character. As for their stats, strength is going to be a 10. We are a caster, we are not going to focus on much, and that also makes that a +0. Dexterity is going to be a 13, making that a +1. Our Constitution is going to be 14, but then we are going to put our 1 into it from our background, making it a 15, and making our modifier a +2. For Intelligence, we have an 8. We are going to dump our Intelligence. Which again, this is going by the standard array. which to me is really weird, because if you're a spellcaster, like, you're gonna want Arcana. You might want one of these at least. So to me, it makes more sense to dump Strength and then put the 10 in Intelligence, and then at least break even Intelligence. You can do that if you want. No one's stopping you. I'm just going by the book standard array for the sake of simplicity. Wisdom is going to be a 12. That is also going to be a +1 stat. And then Charisma, our spellcasting stat, is going to be 15 with the +2 from our background for 17, giving us a nice, healthy +3 so that all of our spells stick. Let's see, we've got Aberrant Mind Sorcerer. Let's get that HP out of the way because I usually end up forgetting it. HP at level 1 is 6 plus Constitution modifier, which in this case is a 2, so that's 8. And then each level is going to be 4 plus Constitution modifier, so that's 6 for each level, so 6 and 6 is 12, and then 8 makes 20. Of course, we are a sorcerer. We are not going to have a great deal of max HP, but that is what it is. We make up for it by getting a lot of cool spell casting. So next, for background, we got Merchant, so that's going to give us the Lucky feat. Now, Lucky has changed a little bit. It used to be that with the Lucky feat, whenever you rolled the d20, you could, or whenever a different creature rolled the d20, you could spend a luck point, and what that would do is essentially allow you to re-roll and then take the higher of the two. Doesn't work that way anymore. There's two ways this works. It works for you whenever you make a d20 test, but you have to accept the new roll. And then you can also use it whenever a creature attacks you specifically. Like, you can't use it on another creature's skill check. It has to be when they attack you. And then the same roll applies, so that you have to use the new roll. With the attack, it's you impose disadvantage on it. Hold on a second, cut. I might have misremembered this. Okay, so, Lucky. You have a number of luck points equal to your proficiency bonus and can spend points on the benefits below. You regain expended luck points when you finish a long rest. Advantage. When you roll a d20 for a d20 choice test, you can spend 1 luck point to give yourself advantage on the roll. Disadvantage. When a creature rolls a d20 for an attack roll against you, you can spend 1 luck point to impose disadvantage on that roll. Okay, so I got that wrong. I remember that wrong. What I just said is the way it actually works. Ignore everything before that. Next, for our skill proficiencies and merchants, we get Animal Handling. So that's good, because that's a +1 in our wisdom. And then we get Persuasion, which again, like with sorcerers, anything charisma is going to be a good choice. We get that nice +3. Sorcerers can sometimes be the face of the party, again, depending on the party makeup. So yeah, it's always good to be able to smooth talk your way through things. And then, of course, we get Navigator's Tools. Because I guess if you're a merchant, you got to know where you're going. And then we're going to go ahead and take care of our gold straight away. We get 50 from our background and 50 from our class, so that's 100. As always, we are not going to go into detail on equipment, because that might depend on your taste and whether or not your DM does the gold thing, or whether they do the you get the default stats thing. Okay. So for our Awesomars get a 30 feet speed. They get Celestial Resistance. And what this is you get resistance to Radiant or Necrotic damage, which are really good. Radiant and Necrotic damage, they come up a lot if you're dealing with Celestials or things like Undead or Demons. It crops up a lot, so having resistance of it is actually pretty good. Next, you get Dark Vision up to 60 feet. Dark Vision, 60 feet. Next, Healing Hands. This basically just acts like a little bit of a lay on hands. You essentially can use it to heal others or yourself. Next, Light Bearer. And this isn't so much anything we should really be putting here, except for the fact that it gives us the light cantrip, and essentially the light cantrip is you touch an object and you can make it glow and shed light for a certain number of feet. Now, next is Celestial Revelation. If I could spell today. So, this is a lot to take in. But here it goes. Celestial Revelation. When you reach character level 3, you transform as a bonus action using one of the options below. Choose the option each time you transform. So again, you're not stuck with one. You can do any of them. The transformation lasts for 1 minute or until you end it, no action required. Once you transform, you can't do so again until you finish a long rest. So this is a once a day thing. Once on each of your turns before your transformation ends, you can deal extra damage to one target when you deal damage to it with an attack or spell. The extra damage equals your proficiency bonus plus the extra damages type, and the extra damages type is either necrotic for necrotic shroud or radiant for heavenly wings and inner radiance. Here are the transformation options. Heavenly wings. 2 spectral wings sprout from your back temporarily until the transformation ends. You have a fly speed equal to your speed, and that will be radiant damage. Inner radiance. Searing light temporarily radiates from your eyes and mouth. For the duration, you shed a bright light in a 10-foot radius and dim light for an additional 10 feet. And at the end of each of your turns, each creature within 10 feet of you takes radiant damage equal to your proficiency. Important thing to note here, it says each creature, not each creature you choose. So make sure your allies are not in range when you turn this on, or you're going to be hurting them. Necrotic Shroud. Your eyes briefly become pools of darkness, and flightless wings, so you don't get to fly, sprout from your back temporarily. Creatures other than your allies within 10 feet of you must succeed on a Charisma saving throw, DC plus your Charisma modifier and proficiency bonus, or have the Frightened condition until the end of your turn. So this is important here. So this Necrotic Shroud one, this is going to work well with our Sorcerer, because it's based on your Charisma modifier. If you are a character that is not a Charisma-based character, and you dump Charisma, or even if your Charisma is just kind of mid, this might not be as good because, again, the DC is 8 plus your Charisma modifier. If your Charisma modifier is negative, like a -1, then it's easier for them to ignore you. So just kind of keep that in mind if you want to make an Awesome-R other than a Sorcerer, or a Paladin, or a Bard, or a Warlock, or any of the Charisma classes. Alright. Okay, on to our nice Sorcerer stuff. Hit dice for Sorcerer are 1d6 per level, and of course we are level 3, so we got 3d6. That is totally not in line, but who cares? Our saves are going to be Constitution and Charisma. Those are both really good ones to have because you are a spellcaster. If you cast a concentration spell, you're going to want to be good at your Constitution saving throws. And of course, Charisma is your main stat, so that's just going to make it easier to pass those Charisma checks. Next, for other skills, we're going to choose Religion, and I chose that mostly because, again, we are an Awesome-R. So maybe, and of course, I imagine this is kind of like, you know, we're like the slacker in like whatever religion school. It's like we know a bit. Our proficiency negates our lack of intelligence for the most part, but otherwise, like, we know some stuff, but we also didn't pay attention in class, so we kind of skipped some stuff. And then Deception, another good one to have if you have Charisma. You know, I imagine as a merchant, you might, you know, she might use this to kind of get a better deal on things. All right. Next, we have Simple Weapons. Of course, we are a nice, squishy sorcerer. We do not do the hitty-hitty, we do the blasty-blasty. We don't get any armor proficiencies whatsoever, because again, we are a squishy sorcerer. You do not want to be near things that are hitting you. I cannot emphasize this enough. For this next bit, we are definitely going to have to read for the book, because sorcerers can be a complex class. It's one of those things where, you know, it can be messy. Alright. So level 1, Innate Sorcery. An event in your past left an indelible mark on you, infusing you with shimmering magic. As a bonus action, you can unleash that magic for 1 minute, during which you gain the following benefits. Your spell save DC of your sorcerer spells increases by 1. You have advantage on attack rolls of sorcerer spells you cast. You can use this feature twice, and you regain all expended uses of it when you finish a long rest. So twice a day, you can kind of supercharge your spells. Always a good thing to have if you're a spellcaster. Next, we get Font of Magic. You can tap into a wellspring of magic within yourself. This wellspring is represented by sorcery points, which allow you to create a variety of magical effects. You have 2 sorcery points and you gain more as you reach higher levels, as shown in the sorcery points column of the features table. You can't have more sorcery points than the number shown in the table for your level. You regain all expended sorcery points when you finish a long rest. You can use sorcery points to view the options below, along with other features such as meta magic that use those points. So you can convert spell slots to sorcery points. You can expend a spell slot and get a number of sorcery points equal to that level's slot, or that slot's level. No action required. Creating spell slots. As a bonus action, you can transform an unexpended sorcery point into 1 spell slot. The Creating Spell Slots table shows the cost of creating a spell slot of a given level, and it lists its minimum sorcerer level you must be to create the slot. You can create a spell slot no higher than level 5, so no like dumping all your sorcery points and creating like a 9th level slot. Any spell you create with this feature vanishes when you finish a long rest. So creating spell slots. A level 1 spell slot costs 2 sorcery points. Level 2 spell slot costs 3 sorcery points. Level 3 costs 5, level 4 costs 6, and level 5 costs 7. So it's one of those things where you got to decide very carefully how you spend your sorcery points. Because you can use it to get more spells, because, again, compared to, say, a wizard, you're not getting nearly as many spell slots. At level 3, we are going to have 3 sorcery points. So that basically means that you can create 1 level spell slot. That's it. And then you have an extra sorcery point possibly for meta magic. But again, that's up to you. Now, as for spells, let's go into the spells I decided to go for this class here. And we're just going to start with the ones for the actual class, not the subclass, because you do get a bunch of free ones for your subclass. So we already got the light cantrip. Next, we are going to choose Sorcerer's Burst. That's one we actually had on our Warlock last week, so we all know what that does. Chill Touch, again, that's a attack cantrip, Necromancy. Mage Hand. Mage Hand is always a good one to have. Again, I've mentioned things like Prestidigitation and Mending and Mage Hand. Never underestimate a spell just because it doesn't have a combat application. I cannot stress this enough. It's one of those things where if you need to reach something out of reach, like, I don't know, maybe you're in a cell and you have your spellcasting focus, use that Mage Hand, grab the keys, unlock your door. Get creative. Like the very good thing about these spells that don't have a direct combat application is you can get very creative with them. Next, Minor Illusion, always a nice one to have. And that one after is for the Aberrant Mind level. So for our spells, we're going to go with Disguise Self. Again, nice little tricky one for casters to have. Featherfall, you know what? You never know when you're going to fall off a cliff, and you're going to never know where you're going to want to protect yourself. Mage Armor. We may not have proficiency in armor, but we can make our own. If you don't have armor proficiency, store-bought is fine. Magic Missile, gotta love any attack that just hits instantly and can be upcast. Next, a level 2 spell, we are going to go with Misty Step. Again, never underestimate the ability to just teleport anywhere within, I think it's 30 feet instantly. Mind Spike, this not only goes with the flavor of the class, but it's in a level 2 attack, so if you want to do a little extra damage, go with Mind Spike. Okay. As for our actual stats, our spell attack modifier is 3 for our charisma plus our proficiency, so it's a +5. Oh, actually, that should be That's 5, because this is actually supposed to be Charisma. And then our spell save DC is 8, plus our Charisma, which is 3, plus 2 for our proficiency, so that's going to be 13. And remember, if you use your innate spellcasting, or not innate spellcasting, innate sorcery, excuse me. So if you use your innate sorcery, then you can up that. And actually, let's make sure we put that there. Sorcery. I just cannot spell today for the life of me. Alright. So next we have the Aberrant Mind. So the first thing you're going to get is psionic spells. And these are spells that, because you have the subclass, they are always prepared for you, but they don't count against the number of spells you can prepare. They are essentially free spells. And you know what? Any spellcaster that says no to free spells, well, ask them what's wrong with them, because why wouldn't you want a free spell? So the first one we're going to get is a cantrip called Mind Sliver. It's an attack cantrip, so again, if you want to do damage, you can just keep Mind Slivering. At level 1 spells, you have Arms of Hadar. That's another one that we saw in the Warlock that we did last week. It's basically a localized AoE. Dissonant Whispers is another good one to have. Then we have, Calm Emotions, and then we have Detect Thoughts. Detect Thoughts is again another one of those ones that it may not seem super useful, at least in terms of combat, but again, if you are maybe the face of the party and you want to kind of discern what this person's trying to do, you use Detect Thoughts, you read their mind, and this is where we get into our meta magic, because if you have Subtle Spell, you can cast it without purple or somatic components, so you can just be there, hands crossed, and be like, I'm totally not reading your mind. See, I'm not moving my hands, I'm not even saying magic words. And you can read their mind and they won't know. And speaking of, for our meta magic, we get 2 meta magic options by level 3. And here is what I ended up taking. I, of course, went with Subtle Spell. And then I went with Heightened Spell. And we'll go ahead and read those now. Alright, so the big thing about sorcerers is you want to know your meta magics, you want to know how much they cost, and you want to know what the specifics of how they work are. Because whereas a wizard is just kind of a typical caster, and a warlock, has it is also kind of a typical caster, but with a little extra flavor to it. The meta magic is what makes a sorcerer a sorcerer. No other spellcasting class gets meta magic. I think there might be a feat that allows you to take meta magic things, but generally, as far as just the base class goes, meta magic is the sorcerer's bread and butter, because you can use those to manipulate your spells. So like the one I mentioned, Subtle Spell. When you cast a spell, you can spend 1 sorcery point to cast it without any verbal, somatic, or material components, except material components that are consumed by the spell or have a cost specified in the spell. So if the spell says you need a piece of jade worth 50 gold, or a piece of whatever that the spell consumes, then you have to have those pieces. But if it just says a piece of bat guano, that's just flavor. You don't even need your spellcasting focus for that. So that's a good one, because again, if you're the face of the party, you have a way to read the other person's mind, and you know exactly what they are thinking. That's a big thing. It may not seem like it, but that's huge. Or other things like calm emotions, you're worried about something escalating into combat. You cast calm emotions, you spend a sorcery point to, make it subtle. They have no clue that you just cast a spell on them. And then the other one I chose is Heightened Spell. When you cast a spell that forces a creature to make a saving throw, you can spend 2 sorcery points to give one target of the spell disadvantage on saves against the spell. So a lot of these are going to be, and again, like a lot of like the common motions, that's going to be something that you can use to make sure that they fail their DC to not be charmed, or to like resist detect thoughts. And let me check something real quick. Yeah, level 2 mana magic. Because your magic flows from within, you can alter your spells to suit your needs. You gain 2 mana magic options for choice of mana magic options. Later in the class description, you use the options to temporarily modify spells you cast. To use an option, you must spend a number of sorcery points that it costs. Now, here's the trick. You can only use one mana magic option on a spell when you cast it, unless otherwise noted in those options. So, you might be thinking like, okay, I want to detect the thoughts of this person. Maybe they have to make a save to, shield their thoughts. You can't do a subtle spell and then a heightened spell to ensure that they fail their DC. You can't, because it doesn't specify that you can do otherwise. But you still have those options. And it really depends on the situation. Because, for example, maybe you're interrogating someone who is already hostile to you, and you just want to, you just want to get it over with. You don't need to be subtle at that point, but what you really need to do is make sure that your common motions or your detect thoughts succeeds. That is when you use the heightened spell. When you want to get away with something, you use the subtle spell, and that's also not that's not just with those social spells. It's things like even something like mage armor, like casting mage armor and making it seem like you don't have mage armor on you. That's a big thing. That's a cool thing to do, or like disguise self. Just imagine this. Like, stay with me on this. Like, how many times have you seen this in fiction? You're in a cell, and then the character who's magical disguises himself to look like the important person, and then you go, "Help! Help! Guards! Guards!" They're like, "What happened? What are you doing in there, sir?" And he's like, "That brigand escaped, and he locked me in here. Get me out of here!" And then they unlock the door, and then you immediately just knock him out. Come on, that is classic trickery stuff, and this is where sorcerers really shine. It is because of their meta magic. They shine in using spells in very creative ways. Like a lot of mages, like you make an evocation mage, yeah, they can get creative with their spells too, but not in the same way that sorcerers can because of their meta magic. Because for a wizard to cast a spell, he has to cast a spell. And, even if the guard is, 15 feet away, he's going to hear you casting a spell. He's not going to hear the sorcerer who's using a subtle spell. And that is where it comes in. I highly encourage, if you are someone who likes to make the most of your spells, to get really creative, and to do, those kind of shenanigans that kind of make your DM groan, but at the same time he's kind of proud because it's so creative, play a sorcerer. And the big thing is I think a lot of people go into D&D and they look at the spell casting and it seems like too much. And it is a lot. But it's actually very simple when you get to learn it. I think what I might do after I get through all of the species and classes in this book is actually do a series where I explain the spell casting very exclusively and what certain things mean. I mean, you've probably picked up some stuff from here already. But definitely, if you want to play a spellcaster that, isn't a nerd and, is cool and can, do creative and awesome things with their spells, play a sorcerer. I think, honestly, they are the best spellcasting class in the game. Sure, wizards get a lot of spells, and sure, warlocks have a lot of cool cantrips that are powerful, and, all their slots are the same level. But they still can't pull off what a sorcerer can with meta magic. So yeah, I think that's everything for this character. Size is going to determine on the race, on the species that you pick. If you want to be a gnome or a halfling Aasimar, you can certainly do that. It's just you be small, and the same thing will happen with Tiefling. Because guess what? My Tiefling's going to be an orc too, because I love my orcs. But yeah, so that's it. That's the character. I hope you guys like that, and maybe it gives you an idea of what to do for a character. Feel free to use this character if you want. I think I also usually skip passive perception. Passive perception is just 10 plus your modifiers, so we're not proficient in it, so it's going to be 10 plus 1, and then our proficiency bonus is plus 2, so our passive perception is 13. So yeah. Actually, no, we're not proficient in it, so our passive perception is 11. Don't know what I was thinking. We're not proficient. I don't have the proficiency. So yeah, that's it. I hope you guys like it. We're getting towards the end now. I think we're down to like maybe 3 or 4 combinations left. We just did an elf. I don't think we've done a dwarf yet. I know we need dwarf. We need tiefling. We need a halfling. I know we did a gnome. I can't remember what else. Oh, we did a human. The human was good. Yeah, so I think we're down to like 3 or 4. I'm sure there's like a 4th one that I'm just not remembering. But yeah, and then we got see here. What do we have? I think we've done a wizard. We need a cleric. I know we need a cleric. We did a barbarian. We did a monk. Oh, we need a rogue. And I think we need a fighter. So yeah, we might be down to 3 because I'm only remembering 3 things. Oh, I don't think we did a paladin. Okay, yeah, so I don't think we did a paladin, so there's probably a 4th species in there I'm not remembering. But anyway, thank you for joining me as always. Hope you like it, and as always, keep doing what makes you awesome. Thank you very much, and goodbye.